Hi, I'm Jan, owner of the Cherry Pick Quilt Shop in Sevierville, Tennessee. We are located in historical downtown Sevierville, and we would love to have you come see us sometime. Today we're going to talk about cutting fabric for the quilt. First of all, you need to decide which quilt you want to make. That's an important factor. We'll share with you that our shop has a lot of kits ready to go that has the fabric in it to make a quilt. For instance, this is called Cabin in the Stars. We do have that kit, the fabrics together in a kit, ready for you to come in and purchase, because a lot of people say, I have trouble putting my colors together. So here's the fabric for that particular quilt to make. This quilt happens to be a king size quilt, so the fabric that's in our kits will make a king size quilt. And you do get the pattern with the kits. So there's that one. So once you've decided on your quilt to make, then it's time to start cutting your fabric. You can also have lots of different books, like this one is Quick as a Wink 3-yard quilts. So there's some quilts that you could just use as a total of 3 yards of fabric. They make lap size quilts. This particular book is Easy Layer Cakes. So you get a layer cake, and there's a big variety of quilts. Like here's an example of one of the quilts that uses layer cakes. And then this one happens to use charms, which are 5-inch squares, to do some small quilts there. So there's a big variety of things that you can get to make a quilt. So today we're going to show you how to cut. You need a good cutting mat, you need a ruler, and you need a rotary cutter. This is a 60 millimeter and this is a 45. It becomes a personal choice which one you use. You do want to make sure that if you use this a lot, that you change the blade often, because those do get dull cutting fabric. So first thing we want to do is take your fabric. You do want to press it before you start so you have a good flat piece of fabric to work with. This is the selvage edge that is not in your quilt. Some people cut it off before they start. Some people wait till later. We leave ours like it is and cut it off when we get to that point. So first thing you want to do is you need a straight edge to work with. We use the ruler as our markers, not the cutting mat. We think you get a better accurate cut when you do that. So I'm going to cut about 1/4 of an inch off. So we've straightened our fabric. So this says that we need to cut a piece for a square that's 3 7/8. So you're going to count over 3 inches, 1, 2, 3. The 7/8 mark is the little tiny dot right before you get to the 4. So you're going to lay this on your cutting mat, line that little dot up all the way down, make sure you have it straight, and we always say measure twice, cut once. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 7/8. Take your rotary cutter. We do advise when you're not using that to close that up. That is a very sharp blade that you have there. Okay, so there's our 3 7/8 inch strip. Now we need to cut those into squares. So we're going to turn it the opposite direction. Again, we're going to lay our ruler on. Line it up at the strip, so 7/8 line, count 1, 2, 3, 7/8. So we have our 3 7/8 inch square. Okay, this pattern happens to call for 6, so you would want to cut 6 more. You probably can't get 6 out of this one piece, so you'd have to cut another strip. So that's our first cut. Our next cut for this one says we need a 4-inch strip, or a 4-inch square. So again, we've pressed our fabric. We're going to straighten it out, cut a little bit off just to straighten it so we have a straight edge to work with. And we're going to measure over 4 inches this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put your 4-inch line on that straight edge. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cut our 4-inch strip. Now we need a 4-inch, turn it the opposite way, and again cut 4 inches. 2, 3, 4. Now this particular block tells us that we need to cut triangles. So when you cut a triangle, you have your 4-inch square, you're going to put your ruler on there from point to point. Line that up, point to point. Now we have 2 triangles that we have from that. We're going to cut another 4-inch square because sometimes it will tell you that you need to cut that, and it's called crosswise cut twice or cross cut once or subcut. Sometimes it says subcut. So we're going to say this said subcut it once. Sometimes it will tell you that you need to cut it twice. So we have a rotating mat. It rotates, which is really nice because then you don't have to pick your fabric up and move it. So you put your square on here. Again, we're going point to point. Cut one time. Pick your ruler up, but don't pick the fabric up. Turn your mat. So you've not moved anything, the fabric has not moved, and you can cut point to point. So now you have 4 triangles right here. It just depends on what your pattern tells you to do. So we've now cut a 3 7/8 inch square, it called for 6. We cut a 4-inch square, cut it in half once, subcut it. This one we subcut twice. So we have 4. Sometimes your pattern will tell you that you need, move our rotating mat out, a 2.5 inch rectangle. So again, we're going to straighten our fabric like we've been doing, and always do this every time so you're working with a straight edge. Let's see, there we go. So now the pattern tells us, and you can, we'll do it this way this time. You can fold your fabric in half. Make sure that that edge is straight. They match up good. So you can cut 2 layers at once. I don't suggest you cut more than 2 layers at a time because your fabric can move a little bit. But we're going to say this time it tells us that we need a 2.5 inch by 4.5 inch rectangle. So we're going to cut the 2.5 inch piece first. 1, 2.5. And then it says we need 4.5 inch. Now we're keeping this together, so if I'm going to keep it together, I need to get rid of my selvage edge. So we'll cut the selvage off. Okay, the selvage is gone. Now, that's 2.5. It needs to be 4.5. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So I now have my rectangle pieces. This is just some examples of what you need to do to start cutting your quilt. Your directions are usually written pretty clear. It'll say cut 6, cut 2. It just depends on what your pattern says. Most patterns have a diagram after you get it cut to show you how to put your quilt together. We hope you've enjoyed your video today. Hope to see you again.